In today's video, we're going behind the scenes and reacting to how the best heavyweight prospect in the world, Moses Itauma, prepares for his fights. DAZN have released this training camp video, and there's a couple of things I've noticed that I think are well worth talking about. There's a major talking point around the strength of Moses Itauma, with some people expressing surprise about how much he can actually lift. There's something he talks about here that I actually think could potentially represent a possible mental weakness in Itauma's game. And finally, there's something he does that mirrors the current best fighter in the world, Oleksandr Usyk. I'm going to be reacting to all these things and more, so without further ado, let's get into this. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Guy Called Henry. We're less than 2 weeks away now from Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte, which I view as a fight that's hopefully going to teach us quite a bit about just how good Moses Itauma really is. There's definitely people in the fight game that are really hyping him up, and I definitely feel that at this moment in time, the biggest thing that we need is more information, because we all want to get excited, we all want to get carried away and get on the Itauma hype train, but there's always reluctance to do so just in case he hasn't got a chin, for example, maybe he doesn't have a gas tank. There's a lot of things that we need to find out before we can say he is genuinely the next best thing since sliced bread. And as I say, DAZN have released this training camp video. By the way, if you ever want to get these videos early, if you go and sign up for the DAZN app, if you want to buy the pay-per-view indeed, using my link in the description below, you can do so and you get access to these videos a little bit earlier than normal. And of course, by using my link to buy the pay-per-view, you help support the channel, and obviously you can watch the fight, which is obviously what we all want to do at the end of the day. We can talk as much as we want, but this comes down to the fighting. But in anticipation of the fight, we can always try to learn things. We can always try to get as much information as we can, so we can try and figure out how we think things might play out, how things might go. And as I mentioned in my intro, there was a few really interesting things that I clocked in this training camp video with Itauma. Just before I jump into my reaction to this video, please bang a like on the video if indeed you do like it. Do subscribe to A Guy Called Henry if you're new, and get your comment in the comments section below. How good do you think Moses Itauma is? Do you think he's going all the way to the top? And how do you think he'd get on right now against the very best heavyweights in the world?
Camp's going smooth with Dillian Whyte. He's like another threat. Obviously, since I started my career, all of them posed a threat to me. So obviously, like with Dillian Whyte, it's just trying to execute the game plan as usual.
Straight away there, you see the Davison ethos coming to the fore there, executing the game plan. Guys, you would not believe, I've spoken to some pro boxers about this, the number of guys that get in the ring without a proper game plan is actually startling. You wouldn't believe how many pros go in the ring and they've got the most basic instructions, and the coaches that they have in themselves, they're really just relying on their own base style that they have and going in there and focusing on themselves and implementing that and putting that on their opponent. The number of guys that go in there and don't know much about what their opponent does well, their tendencies, their habits, things that can be exploited, it's actually really, really shocking. And, you know, the fact that I found out that pros have used my tactical breakdowns in the past lets you know that this is really not a part of boxing yet. But in this gym, they've absolutely nailed it. And the fact that Itauma's already speaking that way just shows you there's that component is well and alive in him. And I've broken it down before. If you go and watch my Moses Itauma style breakdown video, you'll see the strategies and techniques and tactics that he's already using in his game, even at this early stage, to set opponents up and to take them out with relative ease. He's definitely not just relying on raw ability in the ring.
The formula that you're looking for when working with a fighter, obviously you want them to have some natural talent, always helps. But more importantly than that, you want someone that's hardworking, enjoys what they do, resilience, mental and physical. I would say those are the main things, and we believe that he's got all of those skills. Good. Nice loose front shoulder, relaxed jab. Good. Little feint, jab, turn it into a hook.
Training with
So interesting seeing him on the pads there as well. Straight away, you see the variety that they're doing on the pads. And I've often seen over the years the sort of Mayweather pads. I know Anti-Yard does it as well. These very flashy pads that are clearly for the cameras. I've always personally been a fan of pad work that is trying to replicate style and tactics as much as possible. And already in that little clip there, you see some of the elements that Itauma incorporates into what he does in the ring. The nice jab, establishing that lead hand, that little feint, you know, that feint low. Oftentimes, the first thing he does in a professional fight is he establishes the jab to the body. And in doing so, when you start feinting low. As he did there, you see the feint he did, it was a low feint. That brings his opposition hands down. It means that they start to drop because they're worried about those body jabs because they take it out of you. They're significant shots. And that's when the head starts to open up. So even in that small clip there, even just turning the jab into a hook, it's about creating patterns, lulling your opponent into a sense of, I can predict what's going to happen next, and then doing something different?
Ben, it's been crazy because when I first joined the gym, he kept telling me that deep down you love boxing, and like at that point of time, I really did feel like I hated boxing. But then I feel like he kind of like lit the fire back up, because it's like he showed me more to boxing than just throwing 1-2s. Do you know what I mean? Punch, punch, get punched. There's like a whole chess game to this boxing.
That there is fascinating, and that's what I was talking about in my intro when I said there's a potential sign of mental weakness here. So we need to talk about this statement from Itauma, saying that Davison has shown him new levels to boxing, this chess game that is boxing. And I will definitely talk about that in a moment, because I can really relate to that statement too. But the fact that he said, Ben kept saying to him, deep down, you love boxing. And he said when he joined the gym, he really felt like he hated boxing. And that is very troubling to hear from someone who is a young prospect who hasn't even been around the game that long, to say that you potentially hate the thing that you're doing. It sounds like he was bored more than anything, saying it was as simple as just throwing 1-2s before. And I think what's really interesting about this is, look, there's a negative and a positive way of looking at this. The negative is that he's already had feelings at such an early stage that he doesn't necessarily love the sport. He goes far as to say he hated the sport. He really thought he hated it. And the worrying thing with that is you're already showing signs that you might not take things seriously. You might get disillusioned quicker, and you might start just doing it for the money too soon, rather than the legacy, rather than the enjoyment. I've said with Usyk recently, before his fight against Daniel Dubois, I felt the thing that really differentiated him from Dubois and from most heavyweight boxers is the fact that he's obsessed. He's not motivated, he's obsessed, because motivation is fleeting. Obsession is something that will stick with you forever, and boxing is his passion. He lives and he breathes it. So the negative for Itauma is that he already, at an early stage in his career, has found himself really disliking boxing, and obviously that would lead to a lack of motivation. But the fact he's building a genuine, deep connection with the sport, he's understanding why it is an interesting sport and why it's fascinating, that chess game that is happening in the ring, the levels that Davison is teaching him and showing him, hopefully he's building an affinity with boxing that will last him his entire career, rather than just having a bit of enjoyment for a while and then falling out of love with it, as we've seen so many times with so many fighters. Now, that idea that there's this chess game that's playing out in the ring, whenever people ask me why I like boxing, I think there's always this assumption that, you know, you're some sort of aggressive, violent person, that you're angry because you like seeing men punching each other, basically, seeing people hitting each other. But the reality for me is I see the punishment in boxing as an unfortunate consequence of what happens when you get it wrong. But to me, it is that game of violent chess playing out that I absolutely love. And whenever I do a tactical breakdown, it is figuring out how all these different pieces fit together to try and work out who's going to win this chess match. That's why I love boxing so much. You know, if this person develops this pattern, will this person be lulled into it? What are the flaws they have? What are the patterns that they show that mean that you can exploit and capitalize on? Do you have the tools to even do it? How does everything fit together? I absolutely love it. And Itauma, the way he's speaking there, I can really relate to the ideas behind why he's starting to love the sport so much, and why he does, as Ben says, deep down love boxing.
Good. And again. Good. Good. And again.
I just want to go back there a second, because this is quite interesting.
I mean, punch, punch, get punched. He showed me
Let's
more
see
to
this pad
boxing than
work.
just throwing 1-2s. I mean, punch, punch, get punched. There's like a whole...
Right, so firstly, I
boxing
want to show you
than
this.
just throwing 1-2s.
This is interesting. He's touching. Watch what Ben does here. He throws the counter left hook, and Moses pulls back, and then he fires a shot to the body. That is a shot Dillian Whyte will look for. Dillian Whyte loves that counter left hook. And I feel that Moses will do things to try and draw counter shots from Dillian Whyte, but be ready for what Dillian Whyte's tendencies are. So firstly, there's that counter left hook here. Secondly...
Punch, get punched. There's like a whole chess game to this boxing.
Watch this here. Boom. You see that there? This. Dillian Whyte's got a very long jab, and often his feet don't move too well with that jab. Watch it come out here. He slips to the outside of it. Boom. Big body shot. Because Dillian Whyte's jab is very long, Itauma will be able to get around it. He will be able to slip it. And that's what he's doing there. Watch these drills. Slip, body shot. Again, body shot, hook upstairs. Slip, body shot, hook upstairs.
And again.
Nice to see. And there's been a lot of chat about how Dillian Whyte, being an orthodox fighter, he's not fought many southpaws, or any southpaws, I don't think, in his professional career. I think the fact that Itauma's lead hand is so close, Whyte won't be used to that. He won't be used to the counter shot being so available for Itauma, if indeed he does get to the outside of that Whyte lead hand, which I think he very possibly will be able to do, especially given the foot speed that Itauma has.
3, 2, 5.
Bit of classic old school body conditioning there. We love to see it.
A lot of the general public, you know, the expectation's almost like it's a 2 or 3 round job for Moses. And my opinion is if there was any other heavyweight in the world boxing Dillian Whyte, they wouldn't say it's a 2-3 round job. So I think that just tells you how highly people think of Moses. But we've got the ultimate respect for Dillian, got to prepare diligently.
Do I agree with that? Would it be any other heavyweight in the world? Would I see it being not a 2 or 3 round job? I definitely think that Itauma, when he's matched against someone, well, you know, when the opponent is outmatched, you worry about how they're going to deal with Itauma because the speed is so impressive. And Dillian Whyte being at the stage he's at, you sort of think, well, he should be able to take him out quite fast. I don't think he's the only heavyweight I'd predict to finish Whyte early at this stage. But I'm not even necessarily predicting Itauma to finish him early. I haven't really thought about it too much yet. So yeah, I'm not making my prediction in this video. And I would say it's more a question of where Whyte is at in his career than the fact that people think Itauma's the only guy that could take him out so fast, if that makes sense.
I want you to do the block. That was good on the big bit. Yep.
Right. So we've got some weightlifting here, and this is, I was talking about this before, you know, people surprised at Itauma's strength. You can see here he's going to be benching 140 kilos. So I'll let this play out, and then I'll tell you my opinion on this because I do have some thoughts on this here.
5.
All right, so what was that? 6 reps on 140. Obviously, very, very strong. Bench press, flat bench press as well. No Smith machine, none of that nonsense. And as I say, there's a lot of people that have been commenting on this saying they're surprised he can bench as much as 140 kilos. There seems to be more surprise than anything at what he's lifting. To be honest with you guys, that doesn't surprise me at all. And I don't know if that's just because I've been around the gym for quite a long time, but look, I weigh about 75 kilos now. When I was younger, in my early 20s, I weighed like 68, 69 kilos. I could bench 100 for reps. The most I was ever benching for reps was 110 kilos. And I am quite strong for my weight, but I would fully expect a man who is walking around, you know, over 100 kilos himself. I think he wants to box around about I think it's 110. We'll talk about weight later in the video. It doesn't surprise me at all he can lift that much. You know, one of my best mates benching 120 for reps, and he was weighing about, I think he was anywhere from 88 to 90 kilos himself. So look, this is a professional heavyweight boxer we're talking about. The size and strength. You see the density of the guy. He's a thick guy. It doesn't surprise me at all to see him benching 140 kilos. I think that the everyday person just doesn't quite have a concept and have a grasp on just how strong and how big these heavyweights are. But the reality is he's a big man and a supreme athlete. So no, it doesn't surprise me at all to see him lifting this much, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'd be a bit surprised if he couldn't lift that much. But maybe I've got a warped perspective because I have gone to the gym for quite a long time. So I don't know.
This has about as much point as an ice cream in the Sahara Desert. He always had an aura about him. He always had something about him. You could see it, and his dedication from then to now has not changed. 175 is his best. With boxing, it's still in the dark ages where people are like, oh, don't lift heavy weights, it'll slow you down. But if you know how to do it and when to do it, it can add to your boxing. And I mean, he looks like he's slowing down, doesn't he? He's so quick, so fast.
So that's quite an interesting statement there. It's an interesting conversation about whether weightlifting helps boxing or not. I think when you look at the old school fighters, they used to box for 15 rounds, right? So there is an argument that fighters are less conditioned to the sport than they used to be. And these guys were going at a high pace for 15 rounds. I do think that the most important work, this is just my opinion, is boxing specific work. Doing sparring, heavy bag, road, skipping, all that stuff, getting your track work in. I do believe that's the most essential stuff, and I'm still undecided about whether or not lifting heavy weights really helps with boxing. I can imagine it helping with single shot power in the heavyweight division, but in terms of your overall boxing skill, moving around the ring, all that stuff, it's a difficult one. I do think of all the weight divisions, heavyweight is the one where lifting weights makes the most sense because obviously you're not restricted by having all that extra muscle mass. And for most guys, you're trying to have like the healthiest balance between muscle mass and your natural, size, your natural frame to be in as light a weight division as you possibly can. So it's a very difficult equation to work out. And as I say, I am genuinely undecided on whether or not I think that lifting heavy weights is actually a helpful thing as part of a boxer's program. Because as I say, the old school guys were unbelievable. So I'm not really sure, but I think I've definitely heard Hatman talking about this before as well. I don't think I'm alone in this sort of thought process, and that I'm really not sure if weights help or not, in the big heavy ones anyway. Of course, conditioning and stuff like that, fine, but lifting really big, heavy, powerful weights, I don't know if it slows fighters down, but it's hard to recover and keep all this stuff good when you're on the routines and programs that these guys are on. So yeah, I don't know. You guys let me know in the comment section below. Do you think that lifting heavy weights is a helpful part of a boxer's program? I definitely can see a place for it at heavyweight, but it's definitely more difficult to incorporate in the other weight divisions, purely because of the amount of muscle you end up putting on. And a lot of these guys are reducing their bodies right down as far as they can.
It's a big step up. It's a big name. It's a big occasion. First time headlining, big Saudi card against somebody that, in my personal opinion, I think this recent era is the best era in history of British heavyweight boxing.
Okay, a couple things. So I forgot that it was the first time he's going to be headlining. So it will be really interesting to see how Itauma handles that pressure. And we've been talking about this for a while now, but I really want to see what happens mentally if Dillian Whyte does stick it on him in fight week. See how he reacts. See if he keeps his composure and his calm and his sort of aura that he has about him, or if he sort of breaks a little bit and rises to the bait. I really hope that Whyte brings that out of him, because he needs to go through his paces in that sense, in my opinion. But I will say that I think he's half Slovakian. I think he's got that Eastern European blood in him. I think they're a bit different from us in the UK, and they've got that mentality. When have you ever seen an Eastern European rattled in the build-up to a fight? It doesn't really seem to happen. I might be wrong. If you've got examples of that, do let me know in the comments. But I just don't feel that that's really a thing. And I think Itauma's got this incredible hybrid of nationalities that probably make him perfect mentally for a fighter. And he does seem to have that cool, calm demeanor, that sort of serial killer demeanor that all those guys typically have. And do I think this is the greatest era ever in British heavyweight boxing? I mean, we do have so many good heavyweights all on the scene at once. Some of them are coming to the end now, but, to take them all in their primes in this moment, if we had, Joe Joyce, Dillian Whyte, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Daniel Dubois, I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but it has been an absolutely unbelievable period for British heavyweight boxing, and so competitive, so many guys in the top 10. Yeah, maybe it might actually factually be the most guys we've ever had in and around the top 10 in the history of boxing, potentially. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's got to be close.
It's just like step by step, fight by fight. If you're gonna ask me like what's my plan in this division, it's to knock Dillian Whyte out, I guess.
Yeah, so I hate that saying no stone unturned, but it does certainly look like everything has been thought of and accounted for in this camp with Moses Itauma. You can just see from that little montage there, all areas of training and physical conditioning are being taken care of. He even had the neck halo on there, that thing where you do the neck strengthening exercises. So yeah, it's funny because there's so many times boxers, you hear them saying, I've only just started doing strength and conditioning, or I've only just got a dietitian on board. I think Itauma's taking a very professional approach to his whole boxing career from the off, as he should.
If anyone ever wonders what I smell like, and I've got a lot of compliments, I mixed these two together.
That's mad. He's going for an aftershave combo. I feel like that would create something quite horrible, but apparently he's getting compliments, so fair play to the guy. Maybe I'll have to try it.
They will come through in my room. No TV, no nothing. A friend who's also a boxer, his dad made me this bed. And honestly, I ain't gonna embarrass myself, but that bed is unshakable, if you know what I mean. I like to use drawers, so I use bags. Here, I keep my socks. There, I keep, everyone's got like a little drawer. I ain't got that. I got a bag where everyone keeps their little in a drawer. I keep all my in a bag.
Someone's on the road a lot when they don't have drawers, they have bags. And it's like, it's highly practical. I actually rate it. I wouldn't mind living that way. That's fine by me.
Sorry, all my stuff in a bag. This is actually where like my weight. I keep my
Okay, this is very interesting. Let's look closer at this.
weight. So obviously I want to box at 110. I started camp at 114. So slowly, as you can tell, I dropped my weight down. So like maybe on Wednesday I weighed 110.8. I might have been very dehydrated. Obviously, I want to keep my weight coming down steadily. I don't want to drop it too fast, so helps me monetize it.
Let's just go back a little bit there. Right, this shot here of the weights board is super interesting to me because, as he's saying, you know, he's coming into camp at 114. He wants to end up weighing 110. Now, I said in the build-up, there's something that was reminiscent of Usyk here, and that is the fact that Usyk comes in for every heavyweight fight at a weight. And because with heavyweight, there's no weight limit, you know, you just got to be over a certain amount and then you're sound. It's really interesting to me that Usyk has taken that professional approach and been like, this is my best weight for performance. And if we look at Oleksandr Usyk, if we go over to his box rec here and we look at what he's weighed for each of his heavyweight fights, he's slowly been bringing his weight up, but he's always around about the same weight. So 215, 217 and a quarter, and then sort of 4 fights in a row, he's weighed pretty much the same, 221 and a quarter, 221 and a half, 221, 223 and a half. Then that fight there was 226, and then 227 and a quarter for Dubois in their latest fight was the heaviest he's ever weighed. But he's been disciplined and he's been very methodical in making that weight. He's got this performance weight that he's set, whereas you look at someone like Tyson Fury, his weight has fluctuated all over the place. Now, sometimes that's a good thing because you can actually add weight based on what you want to do in the ring. You can tailor your tactics to a certain weight. But actually, I do think knowing where your performance is at its best, where your speed, power, and stamina all marry in the actually ultimate peak performance for you, it's so important to know that weight as a heavyweight boxer, and it's really encouraging to me to see that Itauma has found that weight. Now, what is really interesting is I just want to show you this board, guys, because something people talk about with heavyweights is how much their weight can fluctuate. And, you know, sometimes you say, oh, look, he's put on 5 pounds for this fight, but that's not accounting for the fact that, you know, people say, oh, he's heavier for this one. But honestly, guys, it just depends what you're wearing. Sometimes it depends how much these guys have eaten and drunk. And he was just explaining that there. He might be very dehydrated. So he obviously records his weight every single day because then you know he knows overall on average just how much he's actually weighing. And you can see here, 113 Monday morning, 113.8 to Tuesday, 112.3, 112.1, 112.7, fairly consistent. But look, I think here what he's doing is he's got the number 10 there, the number 9 there, the number 8 there. So he's obviously weighing himself morning and night. And you can see on some of these days, he's fluctuating a fair amount. So on Wednesday, he goes from 112.1 to 113.8 in just a day. I think this one might be a mistake because here he's gone from 112.4 to 123.8 on a Saturday, unless he's just absolutely pigged out that day and he's gone and, you know, eaten 11 pounds worth, 11.4 pounds worth of food, which I guess is possible. But yeah, the point is you can look at that weights board there and you can see the fluctuations that occur in his weight. You can see there on the on week 7, he's gone in the morning on the Wednesday from 109.8 to 112.7 later on the day. So that's like a 3 pound difference. It just goes to show you with these heavyweights, a few pounds, you just can't read much into it. It's when you see those big 10 pound fluctuations in weight that you've really got to be worried about things. But yeah, I think it's really exciting and really encouraging that he goes, right, 100, what is it, 110, he said, 110 pounds he wants to fight at?
Too fast, so helps me monetize.
Yeah, 110 is what he wants to be. So monitoring his weight, being professional about making that weight, not just saying, oh, I'm a heavyweight and I'll see what I come in at. I think that's a great thing. And, you know, even guys like Anthony Joshua, he's often said, I just train and just see what weight I end up at. But then there was a point in time where he had to find a weight for the Ruiz rematch so he could move the entire time around the ring. You know, AJ's another guy where he's been heavily criticized for the weights he's come in at over his career. People saying he was far too big early on in his career. You can see that 250 pounds he weighed for Vladimir Klitschko, 254 for Carlos Takam. Brought that down to 242 for Parker, but if we skip forward here, the 247 and 3/4 he weighed in Andy Ruiz 1, he took that down by 10 pounds for the second fight. He looked so lean and so good in that rematch. And you can see for the rest of his career, he was down on the 240s, and then he's ended up around 250 again later on, especially in that recent fight against Dubois, 252 and a quarter. So it's interesting, and that weight debate with AJ, you know, arguably it rages on. But it's a great thing if Itauma's found his optimal weight early on. He might refine it further, but right now he feels like that's where he's at his best. And the main thing for me is he feels good at that weight. He feels strong, fast, and fit.
That was mine, that was Junior's. Exercise bike for the slow, long bikes. When you've got to be on the bike for an hour and a half, you don't want to go to a commercial gym. People keep talking to you, whatnot. Boom, slap that, put something on TV.
Yeah, that'll be that zone 2 training if you're on there for an hour and a half. That zone 2 training that he's got to do to keep that, like, it's cellular cardio that you build when you're in zone 2. So those long bike rides really help with that. And the fact he's already got people coming up and bothering him shows you the reputation that's already growing. And this Dillian Whyte fight is going to take him to another level if he wins it.
And this is the garden we never use. So I probably should put it to use, maybe have a barbecue or something, but once again, it's a camp house, isn't it? So yeah, that's That's it for the house tour. MTV Cribs, it's been very nice meeting you.
Well, I thought that was pretty interesting, and I definitely took away some interesting points from seeing Itauma there in training camp. Nothing that really surprised me, but just some interesting points of information that I'll definitely keep in mind as I move forward with Itauma in his career, things to understand about him as a character and the way he's approaching these training camps. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I've got plenty more coming out before the fight. We're going to be looking at soon at Dillian Whyte's susceptibility to uppercuts. Why does he keep getting knocked out by uppercuts? I'm also going to be doing this collab with Jamie from Boxing Life where we try and figure out what are Moses Itauma's weaknesses, because right now it's very, very hard to identify them, but me and him are going to try and do our best to figure that out. Please bang a like on the video if you liked it. Do subscribe to A Guy Called Henry if you're new. And as I always say, guys, on to the next one.